Welcome back to the Gun Collective podcast. As always, my name is Jon Patton. I've got a great guest this week, but first we got to talk about our sponsors, blackoutcoffee.com/TGC. Use the code TGC to get at least 10% off. Go buy our Tenacity blend. If you like good coffee, that's where you go. Beav loves it. I love it. Here we go. We also have Vertex. Use the code TGC at vertex.com, VERTX. Get yourself a sweet EDC bag, some apparel, etc., etc. Enough of that. I like to keep those short. Beav Brodie is here, the owner, head guy. I don't know. I was trying to come up with some ridiculous things to say.
The MF CEO.
Oh, sorry. The MF CEO. Business cards. He's the man behind Tactical Baby Gear and a bunch of other stuff that we'll be seeing in the not so distant future. Beav, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, actually. I'm doing really well. I appreciate it. Thank you for the intro. I'm doing good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. What is afoot in Tactical Baby Gear land right now?
So for anyone who's not familiar with Tactical Baby Gear and what we are and what we do, so we design and manufacture really cool men's diaper bags, baby gear. We've kind of gotten into all sorts of things over the years, right? It started with diaper bags, baby carriers. Now we're in strollers and wagons. We manufacture our own diapers. We do all sorts of accessories, coffee, the guys at Blackout Coffee, they manufacture our coffee. So they're great. So certainly, go pick up some Blackout Coffee from them, but they are also our manufacturer. So we've gotten into that and, all things parenting on the product side. But, recently my head has been like trying to get back into the content game and really attack YouTube as a big thing. And where I want to go with that as a brand is really around like prepared parenting and more of the prepared parent mindset. And I had a series name. I really actually wanted to call it The Prepared Parent.
I like that. I honestly really like that. I think that's a good name.
But it's trademarked and it's owned by a university in California. So I can't use it. But the concept is there, right? Where we really want to start getting into content of teaching parents sort of, and it's not like go buy all the guns and ammo and store water for disasters and things like that, but it's more about the mindset of preparedness. And are you thinking one or two steps ahead of what could go wrong here? How am I going to prepare myself for that? Teaching your kids, certain things and sort of preparing yourself and your family for all sorts of scenarios. And some of them you can't be prepared for, as I realized last year when we found out my middle daughter has cancer. It was like, holy shit, are you kidding? Like that was a life-changing moment, and we can get more into that. But those are types of things I don't think you can prepare for, but there's lots of things that you can prepare for,
I have no idea how one prepares for such a thing. I don't have my own children, but I do have a niece and nephew, and I can't even begin to fathom how complicated that must be for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's been ridiculous in the terms of like, you go to the hospital one morning because your kid's got a tummy ache the night before, and they're like, well, we first to go to a doctor's office on a Sunday morning in a small island here, and they're like, yeah, you should probably just go to the hospital because we don't have anybody here that can scan that. And then the hospital emergency room does a CT scan, and in an instant somebody comes back and says, hey, she has a large cancer tumor coming off of her kidney. You need to get to a children's hospital immediately. And it was like, wait, what? And my whole life changed in that moment. And like the shock and the feeling that came through my body into my fingertips, just like this pulse of holy shit. And from that moment on, it was like everything changed in my life. And every picture I took of her, every moment she was smiling, I wanted to capture, because there's these moments where you're like, is this the last good moment I'm going to capture? I don't know what the future holds. And there's just like fear and uncertainty. And then as you learn more and more and more about what kind of cancer it is and what that means and the statistics around it and how do you treat it and dealing with all these different hospitals and understanding all the nuances to it. And then, then we get into chemo and she starts responding well to chemo, and you're like, okay, I think she's going to be okay. And so far she's done great. She is one hell of a little ass kicker. And She couldn't be more positive, which helps us remain positive. And we've remained
Fantastic.
positive through this whole thing. One, for ourselves, two, for her. We don't want her to be scared. We want to keep her positive and like, yep, no big deal. We're just going to get through this. And she's 9. So she's old enough to like follow directions and like, hey, we need to do this. Hey, we need to do that. We need to take this pill. We got to do this thing, blah, blah, blah. But she's young enough to be sort of naive and not really understand the full scope of what this could mean for her. And she's learned more and more about it. Also, for better or worse, really, it hasn't seemed to affect her hearing negative stories. And, we've got a YouTube channel. We document this kind of stuff, and people leave incredibly nice comments.
Do you want to say the name of the channel so people can hear that while they're listening to this?
Sure. Yeah. It's called the Brodie Bunch. And it started documenting our life as a family and RV trips and just like fun stuff, which we really love. And maybe we can talk about RV stuff and travel and
sure,
all that stuff too at some point. But we got this diagnosis and we started documenting Kendall's journey. We've had a lot of growth on the channel recently, and but people leave incredibly nice comments. And then there's the random comments where I'm like, hey, if you guys want to let Kendall know something, like she absolutely reads all the comments, let us know. And then people leave comments about like, oh, my son had the same cancer and died from it, blah, blah. It's like,
dude,
it sucks. And I hate hearing that, but it's also not like when I'm saying, hey, Kendall reads all the comments, don't tell her about the kid that died with the same cancer. It's kind of like,
I kind of went through that a little bit with my dad back in 2017. When we found out my dad had cancer, it was just like, the amount of people that want to commiserate by telling you about their loved one that died.
It's like, sucks.
Bro,
it's tough.
Bro, go away. Like it's never really a good time to hear that. And I know
it's really unfortunate for anybody, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things that's like self-fulfilling, or it's like self-soothing. People say things like that because it makes them feel better. It's not about making you feel better. It's about making them feel better and feeling it falls into that like tribe mentality, like, hey, we're all one and the same, yada yada yada. But sorry, I didn't mean to derail you.
No, not at all. What did your dad have? I remember this happening, and it was like
it was some ultra rare thing, and I can't even remember the name of it because it was
obscure.
Something that attacked his bones and then his internal organs and blah 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 blah. It was bad. Yeah. But what's amazing is that much like your daughter, he was able to remain positive the entire effing time. And I think that is one of the things that makes it better for everybody around. And it's amazing that your daughter has that ability.
Well, and I think it's a lot to do with the parenting, to be honest. And I think that goes for any. And I'm not trying to like toot my own horn or pat myself on the back, but
I'm awesome at this. Look,
yo, check me out. No, I think it's just important for any parent to remain positive. And through Tactical Baby Gear lens, like there's a side of it too where I share enough so that people understand what's going on. And there's an obligation that I feel for Kendall in particular, because she's the reason the company exists.
Right.
So I share enough information there to spread the word about the situation to other parents, because we have a large audience, and I feel the obligation to like educate them and help them understand, but then to lead by example. Lead by example as a good parent. And so many people have reached out and said, oh, this is incredible. You're inspiring us to be positive in our situation, or for them to maybe use our situation as a perspective of like, he can be positive about a situation where his daughter is fighting through cancer, and I'm over here bitching and complaining that my son didn't make a soccer goal.
Dude,
and it's like
inspiring me with this stuff, and it's completely unrelated to my current life.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I really do. And that's just, our personality. My wife and I, we just, it's not a pity party for us no matter what, because even what we're going through, we know that there's other people that have it even way worse than we do with a cancer situation or just life in general, where it's like, do you hear yourself complaining about the fact that your kid missed the soccer goal and it's ruining your whole day, your weekend, your whatever? It's like, just shut up and be thankful that he's healthy enough to run around on the soccer field. That's how I think about it. It's the glass is half full. There's always going to be shit to complain about, but no one cares. No one wants to hear it. It's going back to the self-soothing thing, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could have an entire 5-hour discussion about the behaviors of humans and what they do to make themselves feel better. That is I would say that like 90% of what people do is for themselves, even though they think, they believe wholeheartedly that it is for someone else. It makes them feel better. But
Mhm.
what I want to do is, um, I want to see how this transitions into the idea of this prepared parenting, and teaching kids, because if there's anybody that's relevant to the gun space that is also tied very heavily into the parenting space and that therefore has some level of expertise, it's you. So give me like 3 things that you think all of the parents that are out there listening could be doing to help young kids, teenagers, and the like, be better adults.
Yeah, it's funny in trying to understand what I wanted to call the series, even though like I don't even know if it has to have a name to it, but I kept coming back to this prepared parent and this preparedness mindset. And then I made it like a proof of concept video for myself to better understand what I wanted this to be, what did I wanted it to look and sound like. And I
Okay.
started with a simple video concept for myself, was just like your roles and responsibilities as a parent. Really, it was as a dad, right? I'm really hard on like dads being good dads because I think that dad has a lot to do with the way kids are brought up and teaching them respect and teaching them how to treat women and all these different things. And I'm looking at these things through my lens and through my life experiences and how I was raised and how I'm trying to raise my kids, etc. So then I landed on, why don't I just call this provide and protect?
Oh,
Oh, that
that
hits.
strikes me as hard as the like one of the the Magnolia brand. It just seems to carry this weight, and you understand through the name what is going on.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I really, that's, man, you're good at this.
Dude, it took me a long time to get to that point. But so to answer your question, what are the core things, like a couple of things that I think
Yeah,
would
yeah,
help?
yeah, yeah.
Provide and protect. I think if you take that to its core and like your role as a parent is to provide for your kids, provide, whether that's monetarily, right? Like you're making money to provide and put food on the table and stuff, but also provide knowledge, provide education, instill those morals and values in your kids, or providing them with the mindset and the information, especially in today's world. I can get into that in a minute. And then protect. Like it's your job to protect your kids, whether that's with security and safety and firearms and whatever all that kind of stuff is that everyone kind of likes to associate protect with. But also, again, it goes back to a mindset and education. Like, how are you protecting your kids from predators? You're going to
Hmm.
teach them and educate them on how to deal with a particular situation, right? And
So
it's,
is that like as basic as stranger danger, or is it more complicated than that?
I think it could be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. And
Okay.
I think the key to our kids and children's success in life, because everyone's concerned about technology and predators and stranger danger and all those kinds of things. But if you don't educate your kids on how to make decisions and how to deal with those things when they arise, you failed them, right? If we think about our kids growing up, and like I've got 3 girls. So like my mind is going in places that like you're thinking of the worst all the time. It's like, okay, technology is not going anywhere. I can't keep them away from it or off of it forever. And if I do, I feel like I'm doing them a disservice by keeping them away from technology, because that's where the world is and that's where you live. So my 12-year-old, if she was not using technology or a phone or an iPad or whatever thing it is, it's like when she gets to the real world and she's going to be 15 years behind all of her peers in how to use technology. And then that's not setting her up for success. So it's like, how do you responsibly do that? And then how do you instill the right morals and values for them to make decisions when a bad decision, when a bad situation arises? How are they going to handle it? Did you give them the tools to make the proper decisions, to feel comfortable saying no, to come and tell an adult, to any of those types of things, right? So it could be really simple. And I think each one of those layers has its own set of nuances and can get complex, right?
Infinitely complex. Infinitely. It's funny. I still feel, I'm 39. I still feel like I'm trying to grow up. you know,
I
and
just turned 38 last week, and I still feel like I'm 20.
yeah.
Like mentally, like up here, don't you feel like the
Mhm.
same kid that just graduated high school?
I feel like as I've gotten older, the amount of situations that I've been presented with, I kind of wish I was presented with when I was younger, so that I was better prepared now
Mm.
to be able to handle them. And holy shit, is it freaking crazy how you know, I look back at, like, by the time my parents were my current age, they had my brother and myself, and I believe maybe my sister. I don't remember the timeline, but like, I can't even fathom that. Like,
Well, and
I
it's
can't
interesting
fathom
because you know, especially as like you're trying to figure things out for yourself at our age still in your late 30s, almost
it. Right.
40. And now with kids, you're trying to make decisions for your kids and yourself. And then I think most people are using their own life experiences on what they should be teaching their kids. You know, it was like, okay, this is how I acted at this age. These are the things that I was into. These are the life things that were thrown at me in middle school. Because again, I've got one in middle school, one in elementary school, and I got a 2-year-old. So I could run the gamut of ages. But it's like, as my oldest daughter gets older and she's like, okay, she's in middle school now. And okay, what was my mindset in middle school? What were people talking about? What things do I need to talk to her about? Drugs and sex and all these things that are coming up in real life, that it's like having these conversations again, just so that I can educate her, because knowledge is power, right? Where it's like, how do I instill the right morals and values, and let her be super comfortable telling me things, asking me questions, whatever it is. And I've told my kids before, I think this is a big one, is I told them they will absolutely never get in trouble if they come and tell me something. As bad as it is, if they come and tell me about it, you will not be in trouble. But if I have to find out about it, if I find out you were hiding it, if I find out you didn't tell me, if I come across it, you got problems. So it's like, here's your get out of jail free card to tell me if something bad happens. If you think, like, even if you think your friends aren't telling their, like, whatever it is, like, you won't get in trouble.
I think that's a really good sort of moral compass to instill in a kid. I
I
really do.
think and I think some of it's experimenting too. Like, I don't really know. There's not much, and that's part of what I'm trying to do. There's really not much of a handbook on parenting. You know what I mean?
You
You
know,
you learn from other people's experiences.
they've
What's that?
really tried to write that handbook, and I'll tell you what, if you look back at a parenting book from like the 80s versus now, it is crazy what people used to think and do versus what they do now.
I know. Can you believe we have to put our kids in car seats and seatbelts now? It's crazy.
I can't believe it, man. Strap them to the roof. Strap them to the roof.
Remember, we used to jump around the car while we were driving down the road and sitting in the back of the station wagon facing backwards.
My brother and I used to ride around. So we grew up with a cornfield in our backyard. So when they would harvest, my brother and I would hop in the back, get all the corn husk and corn cobs up in the back. And then my dad would drive us around this cornfield full throttle, bouncing around in the back. And we're lobbing these corn cobs out like they're little grenades and stuff. I don't know how it came to be. But I grew up doing some really dangerous stuff, and now every kid is like padded to the nth degree. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. It's all for good reason. It's like we want to protect our kids to some level, but I think letting them experience those things, letting them get a little hurt, you know, within some parameters where it's not like life threatening and that sort of thing, but like let them fall and get hurt and scrape their knee and bump and figure out how gravity works and what, you know, these types of things. It's like, yeah, like you need to figure it out because the real world doesn't have you in a bubble all the time, you know?
Right? Do you believe in this idea of feral children, where kids are just like outside all the time, getting dirty and kind of
I love
not
it.
left? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, no, I mean, I haven't thought much about it outside of like what I try to do with my kids, and it's like it's a beautiful sunny, you know, summer day, and you're inside, you know, on your iPad playing games with your friends. Which in Kendall's situation, you know, she's got cancer,
Little
she
different.
can't do some of the different things that the other kids are doing to some degree, but like she's perfectly capable. Just because she has cancer right now doesn't mean she can't do things. There's some things she can't, like she can still play in a pool. She can't go swimming in the pool. So, you know, she's got a bunch of ports and stuff sticking out of her all over the place. So she can't get fully submerged, but she can do pretty much anything she wants. So a lot of times there's still no excuse. Like I still push them Like, get off your iPad, go outside, ride your bike, go drive your little car around, go like get some vitamin D. You know what I mean? Like, absorb some sunlight. It's good for you. Go get dirty. Go. We live on a golf course. Like, go get yelled at by the golfers, get in a little trouble. You know,
Throw the golf balls at the golfers.
it's funny stuff. But yeah, I'm super into that. I mean, that's how you and I grew up in the 80s, where it was like you go outside, you play, you get dirty, you ride your bike. There was no cell phones and technology. Like, we had those moments. Like, we had Nintendo, right? We had Super Nintendo, we had Sega, and people like to demonize the kids on their iPads playing games, but we all did the same thing on Friday and Saturday nights. You have your friends sleep over, you're all playing video games and staring at a TV all the time, playing Contra and whatever else. So it's a similar thing. The technology has just changed a little bit.
Right.
I try not to demonize it personally. I try to like embrace it, but balance it. You know what I mean?
So in the spirit of sort of getting out, we talked about children getting out. Do you think that that's a really important thing for adults to be doing right now? Because the world is a really, really strange place these days. And I find that the pandemic kind of kicked people out of their homes out of boredom. And a lot of people decided to stay out. What do you think about that?
You mean in terms of adults getting out and like?
Yeah. Same idea, like feral adults, so to speak.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it forced a lot of, I don't say forced, but it created different things. Like, look at what happened to the overlanding community and the van life and schoolies and RVing and all that stuff. Like, people got outside and explored nature and went on hikes and traveled. They were like, all right, well, we're just going to sell the house and move into an RV and like hit the road. We did the same thing. I didn't sell my house and do all that, but like,
you're like, I'm keeping the house.
Yeah. But you start seeing content on the stuff. You're like, man, that looks really awesome. That'd be fun. And, we did the same thing. We bought an RV and we hit the road all summer last summer. Thank God. There's a lot of things I'm thankful for, especially as my life situations have gotten more chaotic. But thank God we took that trip when we did, because who knows, one, what Kendall's outcome could be and what that could look like in the future, and if we'll ever get the opportunity to do something like that again. So I'm so thankful that I just like was a little, I don't want to say bullish, but I was like, hey, we're doing this. We're trying. There's no reason we need to be at home all summer long. Like, so I researched the hell out of RVs. I bought what I thought was the perfect RV for us. And that's great. And we hit the road for like 6 weeks. We went down to the Keys. We were up in Ohio. We were all over the East Coast.
And there's videos of this, guys, if you want to see all the cool stuff that they did.
Yeah, it's great. It was a blast. The kids had a blast. It's memories that we will never forget. Hannah being like a baby at the time, she was probably like 9 or 10 months old, and it was interesting to take a baby to do that stuff, but it was a great experience. I wouldn't trade it for the world, especially now, because I don't know that we'll ever get to do that again. And you only get so many summers with your kids before they're too old, or everyone talks about how they have 18 or 17 summers with their kids or spring breaks and to make the most of them and all that stuff. And it's like, wow, that's not a lot. But I think it's even less than that, because when your kids get to that 15, 16, suddenly they got summer jobs and they got this and they got that and they can't go and they'd rather be home with their friends, or they want to do this thing or that thing. I think of that. And you don't do anything with your kids for the first couple of summers and springs breaks because they're a year old, 2 years old. You're like, what am I going to do with them that's going to be impactful or meaningful? A lot of times, not always, but so like maybe you get 8 to 10 like solid summers or spring breaks with your kids. Like, then you really got to make them count, So I'm really thankful we did that when we did. And what really pushed me was, again, watching other people on YouTube, in particular, Mark and Trish from Keep Your Daydream. And they have this whole like summer to remember mantra. And every year they do a list, and it's like, I was like, yeah, like let's make this the summer. You know what I mean? Because Cameron's getting older and all those types of things I just talked about. And I'm really glad we did it when we did, because who knows? But
do you think that is something that other people should do?
I think they should absolutely experience. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Right.
Like, just take the trip, do the thing. Like, don't push it off there, because you may not have next summer. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you waiting for? Just do the thing. buy the car, take the trip, let your kids eat the cookies, like whatever. Like quit stressing over little things and certainly take advantage of the time when you can do it, or make the time to do it, because you'll just keep pushing it off and then you'll say, I wish I would have, and you'll have regret and all those types of things. So I think it's adults and parents especially, because parents, you've got this sort of finite time of window of time to do those types of things, versus if you don't, where you're just like on your own schedule and you're like, well, I've got the next 10 years to do the thing. I'll do it eventually. Right. But
yeah, that old, I've got time. It's not a thing.
You're not guaranteed tomorrow,
You are absolutely not. And in the spirit of getting out and doing the thing, Beav and I were able to reconnect. So we had talked years and years ago. Probably 6-7 years ago, very early in the lifespan of TGC. Tactical Baby Gear sponsored some stuff. We did some business dealings, but never really like hung out, right? And then I don't exactly remember how it came to be, but we reconnected at Overland Expo East. Do you want to tell that story?
Yeah, I think I saw that you were going with your van, the Battle Wagon, which I'd love to talk. I've got questions for you on that. And quick background. I come from a background of building custom cars. Like that was the industry I was in before, and while I started Tactical Baby Gear, and we built crazy stuff, everything from import tuner, high horsepower, big turbo stuff to Land Rover Defenders. I got into like that very specific niche market for a while. We built stuff for big celebrities and these really high end Defenders we used to build. We've restored old cars, done crazy resto mods, old trucks. We built a Volkswagen bus that set a world record at Barrett Jackson.
That's
like
amazing.
I've done all kinds of crazy stuff in the automotive industry. And I got quite a few cars myself. Got a couple of Land Cruisers. I got the NSX. I've got the Ineos Grenadier on order. I'm excited for that.
We're gonna have to do a separate podcast when you get that thing just to talk about it,
dude. I can't wait for that.
I'm gonna drive down to you, and we'll do an in-person thing.
Yeah, we should. Cool. That'd be way cool. So, anyways, with my interest in cars and that sort of thing, obviously I built this Overland Land Cruiser, and you talked about going to Overland Expo East, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm going there." So I think I just sent you a DM. I was like, "Hey man, let's hook up while we're there." And it was like, "Yeah, okay, cool, sure." And like, who knows if that happens? Like, it's like sometimes you bump into people, sometimes you don't. Because before it's been like SHOT Show, right? Where you and I bump into each other at SHOT Show. Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, okay, cool. And it's like, I'll see you at the round bar tonight, and you never do, or whatever. But yeah, thankfully, I think I just ran into you out like in the crowds, and I was like, John. Yeah. I was like, okay, cool. We actually linked up, and then we really hit it off and reconnected, like you said, and over a completely different thing, not firearms related, not business related, purely over a passion for the cars and the overlanding and the whole experience. And it was just like fun hobby connection, which then led to us hanging out and eating burgers and talking. And then we sort of talked business, and we talked YouTube, and we talked social media and and that, I think it lit a new fire for both of us and like sparked a new passion for what we were doing in some capacity, which I think really helped bond us even tighter than we were then. So yeah, that's been cool.
I agree. It was a lot of fun. And I got to meet your brother, Matt, which is great. And had some amazing burgers, because for some reason, burgers taste way better when you're just like outside camping. Like all the food tastes better for some reason.
It's better when it comes out of a Land Cruiser,
Yeah. We're camping in this just like this field in rural Virginia, and it's super, like, it's brisk at night. I wouldn't say like down in the 50s, 40s, something like that. It was brisk. And there was just something unique about sitting around a little fire, having some food, breaking bread, so to speak, with good people. I feel like that sort of recharges my batteries more than I understood at the time.
Yeah, it's funny. I just had that conversation with a buddy of mine who I was talking about this whole provide and protect and sort of video concept. And we were talking about the importance of people just like disconnecting and getting out and experiencing nature in like a very primitive way. And I've got another, like the importance of that like led me to this conversation of a buddy of mine who's like this worldwide high level fishing guide. He's like a
Okay.
super outdoorsman, and he takes some of the wealthiest people and these billionaires on like fishing and hunting trips. And some of them are like groups of guys that get together, and some of them, you know, they're like, a few of them might be real uppity and never been like in that environment before, and they're like, oh, I'm just out of my element. But a few days in, and they are so into it, and they're completely different people, and they can't get enough of it. And it just gives you a completely different perspective in so many different ways. But it also, just on like a surface level, it helps you appreciate what you've got back at home. And you've, you know, slept in a tent or on the ground or with a stick in your back or in a tent, you know, rooftop tent, any of those kinds of things. And you get back home and you have all these creature comforts, and you appreciate your house more. You appreciate, so, you know, whatever the things are, running water. It's like you just appreciate things more, and I feel like negativity goes away, and you're like, wow, everything is good. You know,
I feel like
there's a mental health component to it.
For me personally, it was like I wasn't really thinking about, you know, the things that I didn't have. I was thinking about just absorbing what was around me. And I feel like that is very difficult to do without being physically in a different location. You know, it's hard to do that when you're sitting in the thing that is like where all your stress happens. You know, like my
Like at the office or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah. Literally, my office is right down the hall from, you know, where I sleep, and that makes things challenging to reset. So getting out for me personally was a really good thing, and now I'm excited, and I don't know how much travel you're going to be able to do this year, but I'm excited to get out there and just try and force myself into new experiences.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I don't know about you, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And like, does that force you to mentally reset, or do you feel
Yeah,
it's
I mean, I have to escape reality from time to time. As much as I love my work and my business and all that stuff, like it, again, it changes your perspective, and you get to like clear your head, think about different things. When you come back, you look at things in a different way. Maybe a problem you couldn't figure out before, you now have a simple solution for, and you've just been able to clear your head and sort of get the blinders off and come in with a fresh set of eyes, recharged batteries, and just like attack things differently. Um, I think it's super important. And I chase experiences also. Like a lot of people, you know, our business has grown significantly and we've done very well, and we make lots and lots of money, which is great. But I don't really do it for the money. I do, I do it for the money because the money affords the experience. Like I want to buy a helicopter. I want to do all these things. It's not because I want to be rich. It's because I want the experience. I want to have fun. Like I have optimized my life for having fun. Period.
man, that's excellent. So are you actually trying to buy a helicopter? Is that a real
Yeah,
thing?
100%.
Are you gonna fly it? Or are you gonna like learn?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm gonna fly it for sure. I mean, I have to take lessons, and like I'm a little ways away because I don't want to buy like
So
some
many questions.
experimental. I don't want to buy like an experimental kit helicopter. I want to buy something decent. Probably, I would probably buy like an Robinson R44 4-seater with air conditioning. So it's gonna be
You hear
three
this, guys? You
three or
hear
four
this
hundred thousand
right
dollar helicopter.
now?
But dude, like that's what I want to do. And then you know, what's funny is, but yeah, I tell you what, even as crazy as that sounds, I had a therapist on my podcast recently. We were talking about this,
Okay.
and it's whether I get the helicopter or not, which I probably will, but it's the pursuit of trying to do the thing that's going to push me to do more with the business, grow the business, support the families of my employees and all that kind of stuff. So it's like the more ambition I have, the better it is for everybody. So he's like, well, what are you going to do when you buy the helicopter? It'll be something else. I'm like, well, yeah, then I'll need a yacht to land it on.
Sure. Why not?
Right.
You know, it's funny. I talked to a buddy of mine. His name's Andrew, and he runs some very, very high profile Instagram pages to do with exotic cars
Mm.
and watches and stuff like that. He's behind the scenes on a lot of that stuff. And in our discussions, probably 6-7 years ago, he was talking to me about this idea of like setting the goals farther out so that you have that guiding light, so to speak. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think so. And I've never really put a lot of thought into it until about a year ago, or was like, you know, like don't really care about being rich.
Sit back one day and go, I'm going to buy a helicopter.
Oh, I've been saying that for like 15 years.
All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, and so far it's helping me progress. And it's like, is this going to help me get to the helicopter? Yes or no? But yeah, I think you're right. It is kind of like the guiding light when people talk about and like frown upon like, oh, you're so materialistic, and maybe not speaking to me directly, but just in general, like the world is very like anti-materialistic. A lot of people are, I guess I should say. And it's like, yeah, but that's like gives you the motivation and the ambition to do things. If you were totally cool living in a van down by the river, you wouldn't be doing shit with your life. I'm trying to make a positive impact on the world and have a lot of fun while I'm doing it.
I feel like there's a balance to be had, and largely that happens inside your mind, because even when you have, speaking specifically from van life, I mean, these vans that people are riding around in, at least the well-built ones that aren't a fire hazard,
which is probably very few.
Yeah,
that are well built.
The well-built ones are as much as a house,
or more.
And there's a lot of stuff in that thing. They jam so much componentry into these things that it's just a matter of perspective. This idea that you're going to go live in a van and it's going to be this ultra simple life. Well, no, you're living in a mobile home. And
it's funny. It seems bass backwards, right? Where you're like, oh, the simple van life. There is more tech and more going on in some of these vans than you could imagine.
And then you put it on wheels. Like you've got an entire vehicle of systems and componentry, and then you stack a mobile home inside of it. Like, come on, get the hell out of here. This idea that you're super simple. I know you got shiplap on the walls, but you're faking it. Dude, first of all, I'm going to go on. I got to say this because it's relevant to this conversation. The amount of white women on Instagram with white shiplap walls and white inside their van doing this, like, hey, come look at my van.
Van tour. Yeah.
Get the hell out of here. It's gross because all they do is drive around a major city and park it in a parking lot near a beach. Like, come on, man. Come on. Your apartment's 3 blocks down. Stop.
That's funny. Yeah, that's pretty much, and they're all so poorly built. Like when you watch some of these like DIY van builds, like they got some of them, there's some neat concepts and they're like, oh, it's like, oh, that's a pretty cool, like interesting way to do that, or floor plan or whatever. Because you have to get creative, to maximize space and that sort of thing. But yeah, they're usually like really hacked together and you're like, wow.
It's less than 100 square feet, to give context. It's less than 100 square feet.
Yeah. Go
ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I keep interrupting you. I feel bad.
That's okay.
I got so many questions.
I'm usually the one that's interrupting everybody. I've been trying. I'm like personally working on not interrupting the guests.
I know. I've been bad about that too. What's up with your van? Like, while we're on the van topic and van builds, let's where are we at with the van? What's the plans?
I'm going to keep this as short as I can. The van is finally starting to get rolling. I've had it for a year now. I'm actually taking it in tomorrow, the day after recording this, to try and get the slider door to stop rattling, because that's another thing.
Still got rattles and squeaks you're fighting?
It's a different rattle now.
Oh, Jesus.
Because now I can hear it. I don't know. I think the door just it's like probably just a little bit loose or something. I don't know. The slider door handle was leaking water at one point. So anyway, I finally got the lights on the front end, the new bumper, the 12,000-pound winch. I am working towards figuring out what interior layout is going to happen. And a lot of this stuff is like contingent on me basically doing a brand deal where I'm trying to partner with companies to honestly just make it more affordable for me and have an opportunity to like grow and share stuff with my audience. But I've got new wheels coming that are like, I'm going to be one of the first people in the US with these wheels.
Wheels for that thing have been difficult because it's a dually, right?
Yeah, they've been really difficult. And there's one company called Shadowmark doing 17-inch wheels. They come with 16s, so these are 17s. And then I'm getting that same company also has 6-piston brakes all the way around for a dually. Holy crap, that's amazing! And
it is.
the wheels.
People don't, and we can nerd out on each one of these things if you want to go down some little side roads, because that's the world I come from. But people don't understand the importance of like a brake upgrade on a vehicle like that,
Oh my
because
God.
as you build that thing out, it's going to get really heavy.
Oh, really? So it's, for context, it's about, I want to say like 5,500, 6,000 pounds empty. And it's rated to the GVWR, the gross vehicle weight rating is 11,000 pounds.
So
So
you could double the weight of it.
essentially, yeah, I could essentially double the weight. And the factory brakes and the motor itself are just not equipped for that kind of weight. It's just not.
Yeah. So
So
getting that thing to stop is a safety concern. We have all
right.
that weight in it, and then you live probably in the hills, right? In Pennsylvania, you got some hills and mountains. Like trying to stop that thing going downhill is going to be interesting. So a brake upgrade is a big deal. But if I'm hearing right, those brake upgrade is probably forcing you to a larger wheel.
Yeah, you can't do one without the other. I should say you can go to 17s without upgrading
But you
the
can't
brake.
do bigger brakes without
Yeah,
bigger wheels.
there's not a brake kit that works with the factory 16-inch wheels that I'm aware of. A lot of the current, prior to the Shadowmark offering, the only offerings were for the front. So you'd get front brakes, but not rear. And I want the whole thing. I want all the stopping. And
Yep.
6-piston all the way around is a massive, massive upgrade. So we got
Are you
that.
doing that thing's 4-wheel drive?
Yeah, it's 4x4. Yeah.
Got it. And you're gonna do all-terrain tire on this?
I am going to attempt to shove 35s on it. I don't know if they're going to fit, but we're going to see what we can do. And the other consideration is the tires have to be able to support the weight.
Right.
so like you get 11,000 pounds in that thing, the tires have to be able to support a massive amount of weight, and that's difficult. You know, I went from a selection of tires that was, you know, the plethora down to 3 different options, and I don't even know if all of those will work. So
I imagine the BF Goodrich is on your list.
there is a new BF Goodrich called the HD Terrain that I'm considering with that's meant for commercial trucks. That will probably be a better choice because I think their low rating is like 3,900 a piece.
Nice.
Something like that.
Are you thinking you might have to do a lift kit with that? Or you can try to avoid that?
I 100% am going to do a lift. It's going to get at least like 1 inch to 2 inches. The suspension, so I'm getting Shadowmark also partnered with King Shocks, one of the premier off-road shock companies, and they've got a new coilover that's out, and there's some other new stuff coming to deal with suspension stuff. And I believe you get a 2-inch lift, up to a 2-inch lift out of that. And I think I might have to open up the fenders and some other stuff just to accommodate that stuff. And a lot of people don't realize this, but your tires and whatnot are part of your suspension. So if I can get a bigger tire, it may smooth out the ride a little bit, especially if I roll, off-road and drop the air pressure. And so brakes, wheels, tires, what else?
Well, I know for you to even start the build out on the interior, I know that like you've got to make decisions on power systems and things of that nature, because that's the foundation of the build. You have to know where the power is going, where is it coming from, what kind of inverters, like all the different things, solar, blah, 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 DC to DC chargers, what kind of batteries you're going to use. Like all that has to be sorted out so that you can plan things accordingly.
Yeah, then you've got a wire. Then you also need sound deadening, insulation, because I'd like to go up to, the very, very cold temperatures in the winter. You got to figure out where the heater's going to go. I've got a 32-gallon water tank, but then I have to figure out all the systems that go with that system. And then will that 32-gallon tank fit inside of the prefab interior components?
So that was my next question. The prefab, are you going to use prefab interior stuff? Or are you going to build something super custom? Are you going to go extruded aluminum, wood? What are your thoughts?
I love metal and wood. I love the combination thereof. I just don't know what's possible. And I'm waiting to have a conversation with a specific brand about, will my water tank fit inside of their stuff? Because if it doesn't, then I've got to go custom, at least for the water side of things. And we've got it's just like all of these systems intermingle, and you have to make sure it all works together, but you don't want to like buy stuff beforehand and then have it not work.
Yeah.
And I actually also have a roof rack that should be here in the beginning of August. That was custom, semi-custom, I should say, from a company called Tannerack. And instead of, most people do like 5 lights across the front of they call them 9-inch, but they're not. The Baja LP9s is what a lot of people use. Well, I'm doing 6 9-inchers for my lighting sponsor. So rough estimate, there should be 100,000 lumens coming off the front end of the van.
Nice.
Yeah,
I like it.
The
not
van,
to mention the brightness of the van itself.
Yeah, that paint job. Yeah, but yeah,
Glows in the dark.
There's a lot, man. There's so many decisions that have to be made, and one can't be made without another.
You have to know it all from the get-go before you start building, and I know that's a lot of the holdup. And even before that, you couldn't even think about that till you had the van fixed and like the squeaks were gone. You couldn't even consider what you were doing with some of that stuff. You're like, I don't even know if I'm keeping this thing. Probably it was a thought I imagine was running through your head at one point.
I had conversations with Mercedes about them buying it back, and then that they actually got it fixed, and it would be such a hassle to have them buy it back and deal with all that crap.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just rolling with it.
Yeah.
And we're going to see how it goes.
Cool.
We're going to see.
That's awesome.
What's next in your overlanding builds?
Probably that Ineos. I've got the Land Cruiser. I got the 80 series Land Cruiser pretty built out. It's set up. It's got full goose gear system in it. It's got Ironman 4x4 suspension and bumpers, and it's got 12,000 pound winch, and it's got roof rack, and it's rooftop tents, full overland build, and it's
so cool.
It's pretty much done. Like, I don't know what else I would do with it. I've got some rock sliders to build to put on it, and that sort of thing. But otherwise, that thing's pretty much done. And I don't, other than I might do a LS swap in it because it's wildly underpowered.
Yeah. Especially when you start adding all that weight.
Dude, it's like a tractor engine, which will go forever, but you're not going anywhere anytime soon. Yeah. And it's so bad on gas mileage, which is another sort of like, when you're off the grid and out in the world, like going 160 to 180 miles on a tank of gas sucks. It's like, how can I go further, longer without having to carry a bunch of extra fuel? It's like, cool, you can extend the fuel range by adding a bigger tank or carrying extra fuel or whatever. But when your motor gets 8 miles to the gallon, there's only so much you can do. So an LS swap could be the next on that. Then I've got a Lexus LX 470, which is like a 100 series Land Cruiser that we bought totaled from a friend of mine. I used to take care of the car in my shop when I had my shop, and I know the history of the car and all this kind of stuff. And so I bought that. My daughter helped me rebuild it. The front end was smashed in. We rebuilt the front of it, and we added, again, Ironman 4x4 suspension and bumper and stuff to that. I put 4x4 labs, rock sliders. It's got wheels and tires and all this stuff. We've got a full kitchen system to put back in there that I'm kind of been hesitant to do and go too far with building it out, because I drive that thing a lot. Actually, I bought it and had my daughter help me because it's going to be her first car. So she'll be driving in like the next 3 years. So I was like, this is a perfect platform for you to drive. It's going to be a big, safe, reliable, like somewhat modern. It's a 2001, so a little bit better than the Land Cruiser, which is a 94. But she'll be familiar with it, and she's put some sweat equity into it, and she'll appreciate it. And she could, bang into something or get into a little fender bender. It's not going to be the end of the world,
I can't imagine being that age and driving a vehicle like that.
Yeah, who knows what that's going to be like?
Yeah,
but it's a much better platform. Again, it's more modern. It's got a V8 in it. It's a better driving vehicle. It's super comfy.
Have you seen the new Lexus?
Yeah. Are you talking about the GX 550 or whatever it is? The new GX. Yeah. It's sick. It's way cool. And what's interesting is historically the Lexus LX has been like the match with the Land Cruiser, and the GX is more like a Prado or something, Forerunner, a little bit smaller, still really neat and capable. Doesn't normally have all the off-road features, but now they're talking about this new GX being like the similar platform to the new US Land Cruiser and having this more retro look. And they're going to try to bring in some of the old FJ stuff to it. And a lot of it's speculation. You read all these headlines and who knows where that's going to go. But
exactly what it is. I'm going to set it straight in your brain. It's the Sequoia. It's the same thing. It's that Toyota Sequoia. It's not quite the Land Cruiser, it's not quite the Forerunner. It sits in the middle as because they released a new Sequoia this past year, or
It's pretty sick too.
Yeah, it looks amazing. I would rather have the Sequoia personally.
Yeah, the Toyota. Have you seen what they're doing with the trucks too? They got a new Tacoma, they're doing a really entry-level pickup truck. I don't remember what they're calling it, but it's to compete with like the Ford Maverick pickup truck.
Oh, I haven't seen that tiny. The Maverick. See, I'm 6'1" and like 300 pounds. I don't fit in trucks like that. I don't.
I get it. I mean, there's a great place in the market. They're affordable. They're like $35,000 truck versus like these full-size trucks that are 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, whatever. They're crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the plan with those couple cars. The NSX, not really Overland related, but that thing, since we're talking about all the cars.
It could be.
Yeah, there is that one that's got a rooftop tent and all that stuff. But that thing, I'm just in like preservation mode. I've been like, chipping away at just keeping it nice and replacing rubber seals and things that have gone, kind of dry rotted over the years. It's a 97, super desirable model. It's a black on black Targa top 6-speed 3.2 liter. It's got like all the right stuff.
It looks like a current supercar.
It's incredible. Most people, and that's what's so cool about an old NSX is they're pretty rare. Most people don't know what they're looking at, and you pull into a gas station or something, and people are like, what kind of Ferrari is that? You're like, this is an Acura, dude. But so that thing's cool. And then the Ineos, the Ineos Grenadier.
I hear about this. So explain what the Ineos is, because it's an unknown car brand. Yeah. I know Ineos from the cycling world.
Yes.
What the hell is an Ineos Grenadier? Tell everybody about that.
Yeah. So my understanding after talking with them at Overland Expo is that the guy who owns the whole Ineos thing, he's like this billionaire in the oil industry, and they sponsor a lot of automotive stuff. But more importantly, they used to use Land Rover Defenders and G-Wagons as like their field work trucks for the workers. And they would go out to these remote locations to do oil drilling and those types of things. And that was their platform of choice. They were reliable, capable trucks to go out into the field and work. And then Land Rover sort of pulled their whole like, hey, we don't do the Defender anymore. And so he tried to work a deal with them to like build Defenders or something for them for work trucks. And apparently it was going to go, and then it sort of all fell apart. And, he's the kind of guy who's like, all right, well, I'll just do it myself then. So he starts this car company. They decide to call it the Grenadier, which my understanding is that was like the name of the bar that they were in at the time that he met with these guys, and like, we're just going to do our own thing.
That's actually also the name of their cycling team, the Ineos Grenadiers.
That's right.
Which is all super interesting how it all kind of connects.
Yeah, that's I don't know if that part of the story is true, but I heard that was like a bar that's the guy at Overland Expo told me. So they took what the best parts of the Defender and the G-Wagon, because if you look at it, it looks like an old school Defender. Like you would look at it and be like, oh, cool, Land Rover Defender. And then you realize it's not. And the front of it is more like a G-Wagon than it is a Defender. And they partnered with BMW on the powertrain. So it's got a BMW twin turbo V6 in it. It's got a ZF transmission, if I remember right. It's a 10-speed automatic, which is often used in Rolls-Royce and other big heavy vehicles, but also in some other SUVs. I think BMW uses it for some stuff also. And then it's got like 1-ton axles. It's like way overbuilt,
right?
Very simplistic, got some neat tech in it, but it's also a pretty basic like analog vehicle, which I'm pretty excited about. And it doesn't have a lot of frills, quite honestly. It just looks awesome, and it should be very capable. And I have this history with building Land Rovers and all this stuff. And I was like, I could buy an old Defender and restore it like I did with all these other ones. But for like $75,000, I get a brand new one that looks like this. And like,
right.
It's super cool and new. And I was like, yeah, fuck it.
I honestly think it's one of the most interesting new vehicles out there, because it's sort of this like clash of all of these ideas into one. And for me personally, I've always been a gearhead. Like, it's just something I love. And to see something new with new potential and new ideas come out is very exciting. And then, being that you are into not just vehicles in general, but like also overlanding, I'm very curious to see where you take it and what you end up doing with it. And
I think a lot of it will depend on what it becomes available in the aftermarket, which you have to imagine is going to be quite a bit. Like there's going to be, I know Brian at Goose Gear is working on a system for it already. He's gotten some early access to stuff. So he's building, rear system for it. It comes as an option with a roof rack, so you could do whatever you want there. I don't know who they've partnered with on that, but it looks like a brand that exists that has a lot of accessories, and they're offering that from the factory.
Might be like Sue or somebody like that.
It kind of looks that way, but it also sort of looks like it could be Thule or something. I'm not.
That's
not
probably
certain.
more likely because it's an overseas brand.
Right. So we'll see. I don't know where I'll take it either. I don't know what I'll do with it. I may just like leave it alone and drive it as is, because I also drive a Chevy 2500 pickup truck, which we use to pull the RV, and our 2-hour trips back and forth to the hospital every week. The truck is great to drive in. It's big and comfortable, but I have to park in downtown city parking garage with a 2500 is like impossible. So I have chosen to drive the Lexus LX 470 back and forth to the hospital because I can navigate through the city better. I can get in the parking garage, all that sort of thing. So, yeah. Speaking of the parking garage, did you hear about the shooting thing that I was involved with in the parking garage?
What? Dude, how do you wait until now? We've been talking for. How do you wait until now to tell me about this?
Things just. I forgot. I almost got shot.
What the fuck is that? Oh my!
Let's.
What happened?
Yeah, so I'm in the parking garage. I'm getting ready to switch sort of shifts with my wife. We were there for a chemo treatment or something, and we usually do about 4 or 5 days at a time each. So that way one of us is home with the other kids and one of us is in the hospital with Kendall. And after 4 or 5 days, we kind of switch and whatever. So we were getting ready to do our little shift change, and I'm unloading all of my stuff from the hospital room down into the truck, and I had like all this, I had this big pushing roll cart that I pushed down to the parking garage. I unloaded everything in the truck. My wife is about to pull in. We timed it right. So I was like, okay, I'll unload my stuff. I'll go to wherever you park. We'll load your stuff on the cart. We'll push it back in the hospital, and then I'll split. So she texts me. She's like, hey, there's bad traffic. I'm going to be like an extra 10 minutes. I'm like, all right, cool. No big deal. I'll just go back. I'll just wait inside until you get here and whatever. I unload my stuff. I'm pushing the cart back over to the main part of the hospital, and I like just closed my tailgate, taking like 3 steps, and I hear this pow pow. I'm in a parking garage and at a children's hospital, nonetheless. And I'm like, the hell was that? I'm like, somebody shooting off fireworks in the parking garage? Because I don't know about you, but I've never heard gunfire in a parking garage without ear protection before. And
that's a unique sound.
It's different. And you're like, what the hell was that? So I'm like, I slow my roll a little bit and I start to assess things. And I see a guy like dip out in front of a car on the on-ramp going up to the second floor. Because I was on the ground floor in the oversized. I was in my 2500 truck. So I'm in this oversized parking area. And the up ramp, I look and there's a guy like tucks down in front of this car next to like a big column. And I was like, oh, this is the jackass shooting off fireworks. And then I'm like, okay, I see that. And I start looking around more. And then I see 2 guys running down the stairs from the second floor down to the first floor ground level where I was. And I'm like, oh, there's something going on here. They hit the bottom of the stairs. They turn left. And this dude holds a gun back behind him as he's running, not looking. Pow, 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 pow. I'm like,
oh, wow,
15 yards from this. So I see him reach back. And then I heard, pow, pow. And I saw the muzzle flash. I'm like, oh, shit, these guys are shooting at each other. So then I'm like, okay, I'm like 3 steps from my truck. I just put my gun, everything in my truck. I'm like, do I need to go back to my truck? These guys are running down the other way. I'm like, okay. And I look and there's like 2 middle-aged women just standing in the middle of the parking garage. Like, what's going on in here? I'm like, all right, I don't need to get my gun. This ain't my fight. I'm not shooting. I don't know who's in the wrong, who's trying to defend themselves.
Right.
So I'm like critical thinking in this 2.5 second thing. And I'm like, no, I need to save these women and get these ladies out of danger. So I push this cart off to the side. I rush over. I'm like, ladies, we gotta get this. One lady gets hit in the leg with like shrapnel. Thankfully, it turned out that she wasn't shot, but that was what she's like, I got hit in the leg. And I'm like, oh my God, this lady got shot. She's like a hospital employee. She's wearing scrubs and the whole nine. She's like coming to work. This is like 2:00 in the afternoon at a children's hospital.
What?
It's bananas. So I get her and this other lady across the street, and I start to assess this woman that says she got hit in the leg. And we're like inside the main entrance of the hospital, and she's carrying a bunch of bags again because she's coming to work, and she got her purse and she got her lunch and she got all the stuff. So I'm looking at her leg through her scrubs, and like there's no bleeding, there's no penetration in her leg, and she just got hit with, because they hit a concrete wall. They were shooting a 45. They hit a concrete wall. She was standing at the elevator next to the concrete wall, like pushing the button. And
oh my gosh, dude,
it was bananas. So that was like the situation. And then I like told the front office lady, I'm like, hey, there was just a shooting in the parking garage. You need to call. This lady got hit. I'm looking at her, blah, 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 blah. So then the front, like, cops show up. They rope everything off. I'm making statements. I'm looking at security footage with security, and like we're trying to ID these guys. We find them on the cameras, and it was bananas. And it was sort of disappointing at how poorly they handled the situation, like security, like the hospital security team. And then they had like the city police was there, and they were dealing with the actual crime scene area. But like the hospital security who had access to the cameras and all that, it was kind of a shit show, to be honest.
I'm not surprised. I'm not.
But they ended up catching these guys. Like several weeks later, I was kind of keeping up with news stories, and then I was like back at the hospital, and I'd be like, yo, what's up with these guys? And like, well, they caught this one guy. They're trying to catch the other guy. And turns out it's like a common thing. It's like baby mama drama. They were there, and these guys were like in the hospital. They were riding they were coming in the 4th floor. They were there as like, one of them was like the baby daddy, and the other one was the girl's brother or something. And instead of fighting it out in the hospital, they took it to the parking garage. And it's like, what the shit is going on? So apparently it's like normal thing. I was like, so I asked the lady at the front counter, and she's like,
it's normal.
Dude, the 4th floor, the labor and delivery floor, has their own security protocol, and who they let up. You can check in as a patient to have a baby as like a, they have like a privacy thing that like, they don't show up in the computer. So if there's a guest, it's like, hey, I'm coming to see so-and-so. They're like, oh, sorry, they're not here.
Oh my gosh, dude.
There's a lot of baby mama drama apparently. And like probably more like baby daddy drama.
That is crazy.
Crazy. So the problem I have with it is that the hospital has a no concealed carry rule, which I should say I'm
also blatantly disobeyed it many times.
Yes. As have I, potentially. I can't confirm or deny that I carry a gun into the hospital. I might not, but there was no way to enforce it. Like they have their legal, no concealed carry firearms sign on the hospital that conforms to South Carolina law that you're technically not supposed to carry, but nobody's checking. There's no metal detectors. There's no anything like that. So if you're the law-abiding citizen, you're caught with your pants down, because the other guy is going to carry a gun in there and might fucking shoot your ass in the elevator. You know what I mean? And it's like, what are you supposed to do? So then I'm like, well, then they had metal detectors up like right after this whole thing. So I'm like, great. So now, but they were only up for like 24 hours. Well, they were only up while that patient was still in the hospital.
You are kidding me. They took him down?
They took him down. So it's like, well, I'm going to go back carrying. Maybe I might potentially carry my gun in the hospital again, because nobody follows those rules. Why should I? If I'm putting myself in danger and I've got a family to protect, you know what I mean? It's crazy, man. And then it was funny because they kept trying to send therapists and stuff up to the room to check on me to make sure I was okay. After this like thing, which I talking to the therapist on my podcast, and he was telling me about how PTSD and all these different things that kind of can cause it and affect it, and short term and long, all the stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that makes sense why they were sending someone to check on me. But I was already gone because, again, my wife and I were doing the shift change thing. We got it all squared away, and I left. And they kept sending people up to Kendall's room to check on me. And Brandy was like, she's like, he's fine. Like he was built for this. He's totally fine.
Alone.
Yeah, he's totally fine. I promise. But it was a really interesting thing. And then I like had major trust issues. I don't know if you've ever been involved in like a shooting or anything similar or closely related to that, but I was on high alert for like a solid week and a half. Every corner I turn, especially back at the hospital. And now when I go in there, and I think that this is where PTSD kind of I don't have PTSD, and I don't pretend to understand. And so I don't want to like downplay it or or exaggerated either. But
let's be fair. You might just not understand how deep it goes. That's all.
sure. But it's like now I get to the parking garage or the hospital or in some of these environments, and I'm like, and you kind of like, you're on higher alert because you've been there, you've experienced it. Things have triggered, thoughts and feelings and emotions. And now it's like major trust issues. I like hit the elevator door button and I get away from the door.
Yep.
Because I'm like, okay, if a round starts coming through this door, it's like stand to the side, like weird stuff I've noticed myself doing, which I think are the experiences that I can also then help like teach other families and other people and other parents. When you go through these experiences, like, let's teach us, let's help prevent another family or person or kid from being harmed or injured or whatever. So it was a kind of a bananas thing. And I hope no one has to experience it. Because even though I wasn't the victim and I wasn't injured, I was like witness to all this thing and very close to it. And if this dude would have moved his arm like 5 degrees, I'd have caught a 45 like to the chest. You know what I mean?
That's fucking scary, dude. And I know there is something like victim trauma is a real thing, or like being a part of it, bystander trauma. Like it's all a thing. There's trauma is not only for the people directly affected.
Right.
I can't imagine some people borrow that shit and say, hey, I'm gonna take trauma from something that I was never involved in 3 states away. But you were there and in the situation. So it's reasonable to think that you might be feeling that.
Sure. I can't imagine the woman that got hit in the leg and that was even closer than I was, like how she feels coming to work every day. Right. Are you kidding me?
Dude,
it's crazy.
I've been fortunate that I never had anything go on like that at my job. But I can fathom a little bit what that's like. I've got a couple stories that I'll save for another day, but holy crap, man. I want to say that unfortunately we kind of have to kill this. We kind of have to wrap it up. You're a very busy guy. You got to go. I got to go. As always, check out our sponsors. They'll be linked down in the description. Beav, is there anything you want to share with the TGC audience before we roll? Any last tidbits?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I could go on and on and on for quite a long time if we wanted to, but I appreciate the time. I appreciate everyone that continued to listen here to the very end. And
we were all over the map. I love it.
Yeah, I think there was, some good key takeaways for everybody, and hopefully you got something out of it, or at least were entertained, if nothing else. So,
all right, guys. Well, we appreciate Beav. Check it out. Tactical Baby Gear, the Brodie Bunch on YouTube. He's got like 80 bajillion different things going on. Tune in, check it out. You will not be disappointed. I promise you that. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys soon.